Please be advised that the following story contains descriptions of violence and murder that may be disturbing to some readers. On a quiet summer night in 1982, a young couple, Tim and Kelly, were taking a romantic walk through a park in a small town in the Midwest. As they strolled along the winding paths, they were suddenly attacked from behind by an unknown assailant. The attacker was a man wearing a ski mask who came out of nowhere, wielding a large knife. He forced the couple to the ground and began to stab them repeatedly, without any apparent motive or reason. The attack was swift and brutal, leaving the couple bleeding and gasping for air. The killer fled the scene, leaving the young couple for dead. Fortunately, a passerby heard their cries for help and called the police. Both Tim and Kelly were rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. They both succumbed to their injuries and died shortly thereafter. The community was stunned by the senseless and brutal murder of the young couple. The police launched a massive investigation, but no leads turned up. The killer seemed to have vanished into thin air. The town was left with an uneasy feeling of fear and mistrust, knowing that a violent murderer was still on the loose. Weeks turned into months, and months turned into years, but the killer was never caught. Then, in 1996, a breakthrough in the case finally came. A new detective assigned to the cold case began to look at the evidence with a fresh perspective and found a fingerprint that had been overlooked by previous investigators. This led them to a man who lived in the town at the time of the murder and had a criminal record. After further investigation, the man confessed to the murder of Tim and Kelly, claiming that he had been high on drugs at the time and had no memory of the attack. He was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. The community finally had closure after 14 long years of living with the fear of an unknown killer. The tragic murder of Tim and Kelly serves as a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying and brutal crimes can happen without any apparent motive or reason. It was supposed to be a fun night. 4 friends, Claire, Rachel, Emily, and Sarah, had decided to have a sleepover at Rachel's house. They had ordered pizza, stocked up on junk food, and rented scary movies to watch. But little did they know, their night would turn into a nightmare. As the girls were watching the second movie, they heard a loud thud from upstairs. Thinking it was just Rachel's cat, they ignored it and continued watching the movie. But when they heard another thud and some muffled sounds, they started to get worried. They crept up the stairs, and as they got closer to Rachel's room, they noticed that the door was slightly ajar. Peeking inside, they saw Rachel lying motionless on her bed, blood pooling around her head. They screamed and ran to call the police. The police arrived quickly and started their investigation. They questioned the girls, but none of them had any idea who could have done this. As the investigation continued, the police found a hidden passage in Rachel's closet, leading to a secret room. Inside the room, they found a small notebook filled with names, including all the girls' names, along with some unknown names. There were also newspaper clippings about unsolved murders, and some hand-drawn maps of the girls' houses. The police were horrified. It appeared that the murderer had been planning this for a while, and they could be next. They were all taken to a safe location while the police continued their investigation. Days turned into weeks, and the investigation went cold. The girls were traumatized and scared, and none of them could sleep properly. But one night, Emily woke up to find a shadowy figure in her room. She screamed, and the figure fled. The police were called, and they found a note with Emily's name on it. It read, "I'm coming for you next." The girls were moved to a new location, and the police increased their protection. Finally, the police received a break in the case. A neighbor had noticed a strange car parked on the street the night of the sleepover. The police tracked down the car and found a man with a history of violence and mental illness. He had been stalking the girls and had planned to kill them all. He was arrested and charged with Rachel's murder, as well as attempted murder of the other girls. The girls were finally able to sleep soundly, knowing that the killer was behind bars. But the memories of that sleepover would haunt them forever.